All right, welcome back. I hope you're enjoying yourself so far. Our next panel is titled Telecom's AI Transformation, Challenges and Opportunities. Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the virtual stage. And I'll hand it over to Lilac, our moderator.
Good afternoon, everyone. When it comes to AI and the possibility that it can unfold, there are many, many opportunities and opinions out there. Former President Barack Obama once said, "We've been seeing specialized AI in every aspect of our life, from medicine and transportation to how electricity is distributed, and it promised to create a vastly more productive and efficient economy. But it also has some downsides." Stephen Hawking was a little bit more pessimistic and told the BBC that the development of full artificial AI really spells the end of the human race. Only time will tell which one of those quotes will be the reflection of the future reality. In the meantime, we at the panel here will try our best to educate you on AI. Today's panel will discuss how AI is transforming the telecommunication industry. We'll talk about some challenges in scaling AI at the telco. But more importantly, I'll ask my panel members and myself to kind of look at our crystal ball and predict what this industry will look like in 10 years from now. My name is Lilac Ilan. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Ecosystem and Innovation at AT&T. With me today, there are three distinguished panelists. I've got Mohammad Rahman, Vice President for Product, CDN Security and Edge Compute at Verizon, Justin Van Alstyne, Senior Corporate Counsel, Discovery Information Governance at TMO, and Amit Bagga, Vice President for Entertainment and AI Technology. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. Really appreciate your time. If you guys can start first with a round of introduction and how is AI is kind of integrated into your day-to-day role. So Justin, I'll start with you.
Yeah. So hi, everybody. I'm Justin Van Alstyne. I'm a Senior Corporate Counsel in the Discovery and Information Governance Group over here at T-Mobile. And in my role, I deal a lot with especially legal technology, which obviously involves AI these days. But also, you know, advising the business on sort of our transition into these emerging technologies. And so kind of to answer the question of how it works in my day-to-day role, it definitely is it's something I'm seeing more and more of, you know, in everything from customer interactions and things we want to deploy there, and also, you know, network optimization in other areas like that. So it's definitely a burgeoning area, and even us lawyers are starting to get involved with it. So.
Mohammad?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mohammad Rahman. I'm the Vice President of Product Management, responsible for CDN, Edge Computing, and Cloud Security at Verizon Media Platform team. In my day-to-day role, you know, my team is responsible for running and managing the second largest content delivery network. We collect and process a lot of data, and AI is one of the key technology that we use to really drive insights out of that data. Some of the use cases that we use around are related to, you know, our server utilization, our network utilization. We also do utilize AI for traffic shaping because we have approximately 175 different POP locations in the world, and we support up to 130 terabits per second egress capacity to serve the content, you know, globally through our network. So AI and the data usage is a key component for us to be more efficient and continuously delivering, you know, value for our customers.
Great. And lastly, Amit.
Hello, folks. This is Amit Bagga. I'm the Vice President for Entertainment and AI Technology at Comcast. And that includes, so my day job has two different parts. I run the engineering teams that build our video products for Comcast Cable, as well as running an applied AI Center of Excellence, which builds the algorithms that helps improve our products, not just on the video side, but on the connected living side, as well as on the customer experience. Uh, and from a day-to-day perspective, in terms of AI, we again, as I said, we are working across our product suite. We built, we powered the natural language processing for the Comcast voice remote, which last year processed more than 14 billion commands. An example in the connected living side is we analyze the video from our home security cameras and do things like package detection or filtering, being able to filter the videos by people or pets or cars when they appear in them, object detection in the videos. And we also for our customer experience, do a lot of natural language processing uh, to take users to self-help pages.
Great. So that really, you guys really talked about some of the application of AI in telecom. So that gets us into the first question. So let's put the first question. Great. So from network optimization to predictive maintenance to RPA to personalized customer experience, there's a lot of hype around AI in telecom now. And the question is it worth it? So let's start up with you, Mohammad. You talked about some of the applications you're seeing in the large data that is being processed on the network. So let's start with you, Mohammad. What's the hype? Is it worth it?
So I think, first of all, it's not a hype, right? It is actually happening. So that's always a good news that in telco sector, we are processing, synthesizing and utilizing a lot of data to drive customer value. Now, when you think about the use cases, I categorize use cases into three different, categories. First is definitely, the primary responsibility is for us to keep the network functioning at the optimal efficiency. So this is what I call kind of, having the ability and use the AI technologies for fault detection, prediction, and resolution purposes. Second category is all about making sure that, the network optimization is being done. And one of the example could be, some of the work that we do, for example, how we do the traffic shaping based on certain regions. If there is a flash crowd or if there is a certain segment of video streaming is very, very popular, we want to make sure that, we utilize artificial intelligence to proactively predict, how our server and network consumption is going to be holding up that kind of, traffic patterns. So having the ability to redirect traffic to less consumed circuits, having the ability to work with partners and, continuously utilizing data to really enable superior experiences around network optimization. So that's the key category of the use case that we use. And the last category I think about is also related to network planning and growth. So for example, we utilize a lot of data to better understand where the future growth may come. We look at different events and we look at how utilizing this data can help us make business decision, because one of our key goal is to predict the future of consumption. So if you think about these three categories, I think the answer to your question is definitely it is worth it, and it is basically happening. I wouldn't call it hype. It's actually something that if as a telco provider, you're not consuming this data, you're not utilizing this data to make business decision, you will feel left behind and you will have unhappy customers.
Agree. Amit, anything to add on your side?
I agree with Mohammad that it's certainly not hype, right? We're making, there's meaningful impact that AI is making, and I can talk to it from the product space, right? Because my group is helping improve our products. So I'll give you the example of the voice remote. It certainly, made it predated Alexa and Google, and it certainly made it a lot easier for people to get to the content that they were looking for. and it was one of the more successful products that Comcast has launched. As I said, we did 14 billion commands last year, and so people certainly are using it in significant numbers. Also, from a customer experience perspective, we are by matching people's queries or to self-help pages, we are able to take millions of calls, or able to prevent millions of calls hitting our call centers, because people can get to the get the information they need to help address the issues. So certainly it has tremendous impact on different parts of the company.
Absolutely. I think you all kind of nailed the main couple of use cases for AI and telco, right? The optimization, the network, predictive network, predictive usage. Those are all, with the data that we have on our network, would be great use cases that we're putting to place every day. And we'll talk about COVID and how that plays with it in a short time. But it's also important to talk about how, things have things to say, right? And AI is the one kind of translator that helps take all of the things that they're saying to a common benefit and unlock additional value. So I'll give you an example, and the value should be not necessarily just for the benefit of the telco, it's also for the better economy and the customers that we're working with. So a good example with that is on the IoT side of the house, AT&T has 83 million connections that are connected on our network and every day. And those things are talking, right? From dog collars to alarm system to security, whatever that might be. And now AI is really what's helping unlocking the value of what that data on those devices are saying, and helping our customers to realize new streams of revenue, new cost-effective way to operate their business. So I see AI as not only operating, benefiting our telco industry by ourselves, but also helping kind of fueling that ecosystem of AI for the greater good of the economy. What's your thought, Justin?
Yeah, I'd agree with everything everybody's said up to this point, especially Mohammed's point about how AI is already here. It's not really, there's really no hype discussion at this point. It's a reality. And just to add another example into it where I think we're, at least over here, we're starting to see, or we're starting to use it. I know across the industry, we're all dealing with the problem in our legal department. We deal with it quite a bit, is, account takeovers. So, SIM swapping, SIM jacking, that sort of behavior. And I think that's going to be a use case where AI it is and is going to be an even bigger part of fraud detection, and basically ensuring that when our customers are attempting to change a line or something, that it's legitimate behavior, because that's definitely a huge risk area for us. So that's one in where you can sort of add the specifically legal perspective, where I think you're going to start to see a lot more in that area as well as the examples that you all had brought up earlier.
Yeah, you actually brought a really good segue to our next question, Justin. So let's go to the next question. And Amit, I will start with you, because Justin mentioned the risk that associated with some of it, but Amit and Mohammad, and you mentioned the amount of data that is going through each of our telcos every day, right? And that data needs to be processed to get some insights and actions. What do you see has been the greatest impact of AI and telecom? And if you can, guys, you gave some example, but what in your mind, what would be the greatest example? So Amit, I'll start with you this time.
Sure. I think the biggest impact areas for AI are going to be being predictive. We have a lot of the examples we have currently. We see the data and we act on the data, and it's more reactive in nature, the problems we are going after. But I think we have to, as you were just saying, we have tons of data. Can we analyze the data to be more predictive, right? Like whether it's can we be predictive of a network outage, can we be predictive of a slow broadband that you're having experiencing in the house, you may be experiencing, and acknowledging that, hey, we noticed you may be having some slow broadband, and here's the potential solution, right? And predictively reaching out to customers. So I think that's a high impact area. It's a tough problem. There's no doubt about it, but I think we have the data, and we certainly, AI is mature enough to get us there.
Great. Mohammad, what's your thought?
I think in terms of the greatest impact that AI can make, we need to kind of think about both the customer impact and the network impact, right? So in terms of the customer or the consumer impact that we are talking about, how we can utilize the data to really help them discover new services and really enable them to adopt some of these services so that they can leverage the capabilities that are being offered. So one of the example could be that if you are a small business customer and you don't have the resources to learn a lot about what are the new services that can help your business to be more efficient, more secure, or help you grow in revenue, the AI can drive that kind of a value. For example, at Verizon, we have the ability to not only look at the product that you have bought from us, but also recommend products that can help your business to be more secure. We can also offer you, capabilities that would enable you to deliver faster experiences. We can also, enable you by looking at the data that we have at our exposure to see if you're running, one of the, growth website, or you are running an e-commerce channel utilizing our CDN infrastructure. We can offer you additional services with the help of AI that you may be needed to utilize, a next generation image manager from us, or you may need to, protect your website or your e-commerce solution by offering you, the capabilities around bot detection and mitigation solution. So from my perspective, the greatest impact of AI is especially how we can help our customers to be more efficient and continue helping them grow their business. Now, on the consumer front, the impact of AI is where I see looking at churn analysis, how we can understand customer patterns and improve, the performance and, capabilities to them so that they don't churn from our service. Likewise, on the consumer side, AI is going to drive additional, capabilities around immersive experiences. So as you think about rolling out new, AR and VR experiences, how we can offer them additional capabilities by utilizing AI and the usage of some of these, solutions that are going to be at the exposure of the consumer. So again, in terms of the greatest impact, we need to kind of take a look at both from a business perspective and then consumer perspective, and use the right use case to deliver value to them.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think Amit mentioned that the greatest impact is around the prediction. And I think what you're adding is it's not just the ability to predict, it's now AI is going to help the telco to move into the next level, which is actually prescribe. And that prescription would be really optimized and targeted, tailored to either a consumer need or a business need. Let's think about the next, future world where I'm going to work with a consumer to say, hey, it seems like you're consuming data from certain kind of days, and maybe you need a specific kind of network needs, and a data plan in kind of one week would be that kind of a megabyte, and another one would be a totally different need. Or think about a business that, to Mohammed's point, is running heavy data load and real-time applications like AR, VR, or computer, and they might be prescribed a much more dynamic and heavy data network versus some application that needs a much lower one. So I think this is the way we're going into the predict, is where we are and helping our network predict the usage, predict the maintenance, the prescribe is where we're going to go. And Justin, with prescription, how do you see that on your side from the legal side of it?
Yeah, I thought it was, just as an aside there, I thought Mohammed's comment about especially as it relates to churn, I hear so much about that from our business. And again, I'm not a technical expert like you guys are, but that does seem to be one place where we're using AI very robustly to predict that and mitigate it right down the stretch. And like I was saying earlier, I think from the legal perspective, the fraud mitigation is going to be a big part of it, but and as we discussed earlier, I think that's again, there's so much metadata out there associated with everything someone is doing on our network that it's really a pretty amazing amount of information when you think about it. And then also, we're seeing it, and this is kind of a little bit of a stretch for the legal perspective, but especially around like data management, because a big part of my job is when we get a lawsuit or some sort of investigation is I have to make representations to government entities, to opposing parties who don't necessarily like us, about what data we have, where it is, the dimensions of that data. And what we found is that it's just wrapping your head around it is pretty challenging. And that's where AI can come in and help quite a bit in not only categorizing, but also, helping you implement, say, like a records retention policy, right? And being able to offload data that's stale, or not being used and things like that. So I think that those will continue to be big drivers over on the legal side of the business.
Absolutely. So that actually gets us into the next one, which is, I think we talked about understanding and prescribing the demand. During COVID-19, both business and individual had to really rely on us, the telco, to deliver a reliable and secure network, right? Working from home and learning from home mandated a huge demand for data, and that ranges from high speed to video conferencing, which we needed to make sure that everyone is delivered with the best customer experience and networks are really being reliable. Without any problem, we had to be really detecting the network challenges ahead of time such that customer experience would maintain. So COVID-19 was a big shift for many industries, including us. What are you guys seeing on the adoption of AI before and after COVID, especially in the telcos? And if you know about, you can also comment about other industries as well. So let's start, Justin, maybe with you. Where do you see the adoption of AI before and after COVID on telco side?
So yeah, I think it goes back, a little bit to, and again, my perspective is always on the legal side. Mohammed and Amit are going to be much better, talking about and you on the business side. But definitely on the legal side, especially as I was saying earlier about sort of the data management and information governance, really, we've seen that a big uptick in that because again, we're being presented with all sorts of new information governance problems, right? Because now, we might not have been quite as aggressive on our rollout of some of these things if we hadn't had things like people using, like WebEx now, right? And since people are separated across multiple time zones, they're creating these, a lot of meeting recordings and things like that. So a lot of that has been our deployment of AI in the legal department has definitely been accelerated. It has been accelerated by that. I would also say that, for us as an organization, like, T-Mobile as a company, I don't think it really changed our outlook on AI very much. I mean, it was a huge part of what we've been doing since the day I got here in 2017. But I think that the wider point of the question is right, that it's definitely accelerated the adoption in multiple, discrete subparts there.
Great. Mohammed?
So due to COVID, what we all have experienced is basically acceleration of AI usage. And especially if you think about from a B2C perspective, a lot of the day-to-day services that we use uh, now utilizes data and AI one way or another. Whether you are using Uber application, or whether you are using Instacart, or you are using e-commerce website while you're trying to buy you're trying to buy anything for your home usage. So the way I think about it, from a B2C perspective, a lot of the application that we interact definitely have accelerated acceleration of the usage of AI to really deliver what I consider the recommendation to the end user, so that they have the ability to take faster action that eventually translates into business growth and more shopping, or more utilizing the same service. So there is more stickiness around it. So AI is definitely playing a huge role in terms of more stickiness and more digital life experiences that have accelerated due to COVID. Now, on the business side, what I have seen the usage of AI, as we are all aware of, at least on our network, there was 30% increase in terms of traffic. And as we are all aware of, 70 to 80% of web traffic comprise of video. We have a content delivery network that is optimized for video streaming. And as part of us delivering the best in class experience while you are watching, a virtual, game, or you are doing, you are watching live linear channels, or you are watching video on demand content. If companies are utilizing our network, we utilize AI heavily to make sure that we are, routing our traffic in an efficient manner. We also make sure that we utilize AI to deliver superior experiences by looking at usage patterns in different geographies. And lastly, we utilize AI as well as give that insight to our end customer, who may be delivering live event, or they may be delivering video on demand, content to the end user. So in short, so in short, both consumers and business experiences really heavily relied on AI usage that have accelerated during COVID.
And Amit, as Vice President for Entertainment, I assume the entertainment industry, right, has been tremendously been impacted by COVID, and how people are consuming entertainment changed from COVID. So let's talk about the AI role in your organization before and after COVID. How do you see that change?
Well, I'll list three different areas. The entertainment obviously is one of them, right? Personalized, the viewership went up because people were stuck at home and were consuming a lot more, right? So, in addition to the voice remote usage going up, there's more emphasis on personalization. Can you personalize as much as you can to get people to watch the content that they would like to watch? So we have a whole bunch of personalization algorithms. It certainly increased the need for personalization. At least at Comcast, they're there was much more. We had algorithms before, but the product side embracing personalization was certainly eye-opening, that they wanted more personalization and pretty quickly across the products. So that's one area. The second one, Mohammed mentioned this, is the focus on network quality. Networks are, were the connectivity part was pretty critical during the whole pandemic, and being able to detect problems as quickly as possible and resolving them. And certainly, we double down on AI spend on the network quality piece. And then the third one is on the CX side, in terms of helping agents, like in terms of automating as much as we could, in terms of getting our customers the help they needed. Excuse me. but also being able to help the agents in terms of tools that they could have, being able to predict what kind of packages a customer, based on their history, what package to recommend to a customer, um, or even what to say next, given a customer has presented a problem or an issue that they may be having, and being able to predict, how do you respond to that, being and getting AI to help, with the next best action for the agent, and doubling down on that was pretty critical for us as well.
Great. So far, gentlemen, we gave our audience a good view of how we telco use AI and machine learning in our house, right? How we're utilizing it internally. We also kind of helped provide them an insight of how we're using it to help provide the best service for them as well. But you know what? A lot of times, gentlemen, when I go meet with my customers and when I go meet with our business unit, I often get, we love AI, but it's really hard to make. It's really hard to execute, right? There are different challenges that I've got, from where do I start to how do I handle this mass amount of data to, hey, I don't have the right set of skills and talent in my organization, security coming up. And of course, what do I do with the output at the end of the day? How do I act on those insights? So let's talk about those challenges, gentlemen. And Dustin, I'm actually going to start with you this time around challenges in the organization in leveraging and scaling AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a lot of really good points there in that very short blurb. Yeah, so I mean, where we tend to run into difficulty on the legal side is that definitely, like, the legal system is, as an entity, is a very recalcitrant sort of, and we're sometimes a little bit behind the times as a result, because we do tend to be more conservative and more I don't know, risk averse. Maybe that's a better word for it. But you're starting to see that change, especially, as it relates to, say, like, our recent merger with Sprint. We could not have gotten through our second request there without AI, without using algorithms, and because you're talking about data sets that are just absolutely gigantic, and that would cost even a Fortune 500 company an unconscionable amount of money to go through. And so what you're finding is that, like Mohammad and Amit have been saying, we're using AI to leverage, and again, it's, I think there's always a misconception out there that, AI is going to, like, steal your job or whatever, but we don't find that that's the case. It's, it takes people, as you were saying, Lilac, like figuring out what you want from AI and then delivering on that result, which is always the key, because I think that that's something you run into a lot in this industry, which is people want just sort of a magic button, but it's not that. They think it's just, oh, I press the button and I get immediately everything I want. No, it's a tool that you can use to be able to execute better and to be able to hopefully, scale up the people that you have. So that's where I've seen it in the legal industry, is definitely getting some of the old guard, such as the judges and things like that, to understand that AI is a useful and appropriate tool, especially in some of our larger cases.
And Justin, why I handed over the question to you, because I want to make sure that my legal people are as conservative as yours and not the other way around. Yeah. Okay. At least you guys are aligned. Amit, right. I'm going to hand it to you as well. Some of the challenges that you guys are seeing in scaling AI.
There are lots of dimensions. There's a lot of in this question, right? We can start with hiring. It is an issue, and it's gotten worse because of the pandemic. Because there's the geo fencing we had, because we had certain advantages of being in certain country. All of that is gone. You can basically work for any company from any place at this point. at least in the AI space. So hiring is certainly, and retention, they both become, our challenges, and especially, with the FANGs being bigger and compared to the telcos, it's just is a challenge. The second one I'd like to highlight is buy versus build. Should we, when we are deciding when to use AI, there are lots of vendors that come knocking on our doors, and you have to decide whether you want to build it yourself or have a vendor build it for you. That's certainly one of the challenges very early on, and yeah, that's a tricky one because my gut always says to build because a lot of the power is in the data, and 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 most of the knowledge of the data and the intuitions around the data lie within the org. And getting a vendor usually doesn't help a whole lot because they have to go through the whole learning process of trying to understand the data. And then talking about data, we have large quantities of data, but the data can be noisy. And so that's a challenge by itself is how do you, there's a lot of investment that has to go into creating a data lake and making sure it serves the needs for different algorithms that you're going to build using the data. So, normalization of the data, cleaning of the data, that's another challenge. And then finally, I'll say, what question are you trying to solve? AI can be used in many, many different areas, and identifying what questions or what problems you're going to tackle is a challenge by itself. And this is one more on the product management side rather than the technology side, because the technologists, given a problem, will try to solve it. But constructing the problem and going after the right one is certainly one where good product management certainly helps significantly.
So you guys kind of really, between Justin and yourself, you kind of nailed it, right? It's the question of where to start. It's the ROI. It's the challenges and the cleaning of the data. What do you do with that massive amount of data? The skills and the talent that still remain a big issue for many companies to hire the right people with the right set of skills and the right location. That's a big one. Mohammad, talk about integration. How do you see the challenge about, what I found is even when companies start, they don't really know how to act on it, because then it means that they have to start integrating with, maybe with their ERP or with their CRM to really automate some of that insight that would drive to the full digital transformation in their business. So what's your view on that challenge, and what would you recommend a business to do?
I think you have raised a very important point. And if we all kind of take a step back, I think if AI and data overall strategy needs to be successful in a company, you need to have an executive sponsor. Because historically, what has been happening that a lot of business units or technology teams are embracing the AI phenomena, and they are trying to kind of maybe come up with a solution without really understanding the problem. And that can be resolved if you have an executive sponsorship, and AI and data become key component of any company's overall business strategy. So that's one key area that we need to focus on. And then secondly, what I have seen in my experience, and Amit kind of touched on it, really what's important is AI and data is, I consider, basically a solution or an answer, but what are the key problems that we are trying to solve? Because at the end of the day, whether it's integration, whether it's data governance, as Justin called out, or whether it's data quality or data platform, we don't have a lot of resources, right? We will never have enough resources. So we have to prioritize. And I think the prioritization has to come through by understanding the business strategy that translates into a product strategy in terms of what are the customer pain points you're trying to solve. And then AI and data strategies become a solution to those problems.
So that gets me into, we covered the challenges. So give me one tip that you will give an enterprise customer or that's looking to adopt AI. What would be your one tip? Because we don't have much time for a lot. I'll go around the table real quick. What would be a tip that you will give them as they start building their AI practice?
I can start. I'd say data is a new IP or data is a new gold. So protect your data as you would protect any other IP.
Okay, protect data. Great. Justin?
I would, yeah, that's Amit, that's a really good point. I think that's very true. But I would always say just, and this is why I used to be a public school teacher, and that's where I learned this lesson, but always begin with the end in mind. So be thinking about, how, what's the question you're trying to answer? What are you trying to accomplish before, just digging in too deeply?
Mohammad?
My tip would be to set the realistic expectation with business and executives, right? Because the way I think about it, and a lot of people may know this, it takes 80% of the time to really understand the problem, gather the data, synthesize the data, and the 20% is the actual predictive element of the AI journey.
Right.
And a lot of us would know who have been in this industry for a number of years, but if you are just starting your AI strategy, set the right expectation, have a very clear problem statement, and then utilize data and AI as a solution vehicle, as compared to just defining an AI strategy and expecting great results right out of the gate.
I agree with you all. And I think what you're hearing from all of us is be cautious, start small, don't go directly to the moon. I will add to what was said before that, which is the buy versus the build. I think this is a critical one to add to whatever you guys were saying, because sometimes you need someone to come in and advise you from the outside and help you build the right framework, at least for a small question. That I'll say that will be your training wheel to kind of stand up the practice before you go and write on your own. So great points, everyone. I think we gave, if we summarize what we've covered so far, we gave our audience, again, a view of how we're implementing AI in our day-to-day life. We talked about some of the challenge. We even give them some tips to overcome it. I want you guys all to start talking about the future. And then we're going to shift gears into a little bit about the future in the next 10 minutes of the session. We've been talking about 5G. All of us, all carriers, been very loud about our 5G strategy. And Justin is smiling because everyone has been very loud. So let's talk about, how do you guys think that 5G will impact AI? How will they live together? What would it do to the telco industry and help in adoption, increase adoption of AI? So Mohammad, I'm actually going to start with you this time because edge compute is right around your alley. I'm sure you'll have some things to add to that. Let's talk about edge compute and AI, and then we keep going. And now, if you guys can keep it brief, because there's one more question I want to ask. Just 1 minute, please.
So I will be brief. I think 5G is really going to provide the foundation where AI is going to prosper and will become more and more get adapted across the organization. Especially if you think about having the compute capability, and that's where edge compute is one of the key currency, where we are enabling compute and storage closer to the end user, and having that ability to process the data and enable insights closer to the end user in a much faster fashion would definitely enable better customer experiences, would enable better business efficiencies, and eventually drive business growth for enterprise companies.
I heard, to your point, I heard a sentence that says AI was going to be the next filter. It's going to help decide what is the relevant data and where it's going to be sent, right? There's going to be some of the data that's going to be processed closer to the edge, and you might not use it, or you're going to send it over, you're going to send the insights to where it's relevant and act on it. So Amit, your point to that, how do you see 5G and AI working together?
Agreed. I think it will the edge versus cloud compute right now it's going to it's going to increase the edge computing for sure. There's also going to be more data generated in general, which is going to again help with AI adoption because of that. And so those are my 2 points on this one.
I would just say, oh, sorry. I was going to say, I just agree with that. Definitely. Specifically because, as the pipe gets bigger and more data is going through it, you are not going to have much of a choice. You're not going to be able to analyze this in the absence of AI. So I think that's exactly correct.
Great. So I think now for the remaining time, I'm going to ask you to look at your crystal ball and kind of try to help me predict, because we talked about predicting and prescribing. So let's talk about what are we predicting the telco industry would look like in 5 to 10 years from now. Amit, let's start with you.
So I had talked about things going from reactive to predictive, and I'll take that to the next level, which would be proactive. So not only can you predict problems, but you can proactively solve problems for your customers without even them realizing that there were problems that happened, right? If you're having a slow broadband, maybe going and resolving it short of a reboot, obviously, because that would be pretty disruptive, but proactively, solving problems that help the customer experience.
Great. Mohammad?
When we think about 5 to 10 years for telco industry, I think telco industry is going to provide the key infrastructure to deliver the next generation experiences, whether it's AR and VR adoption, whether it's self-driving cars, whether it's flying cars, whether it's self-healing systems, whether it's self-optimizing networks. And all of that is really dependent on the 5G adoption, but then also how all of us are going to transition from 4G to 5G globally, and then from 5G to most likely 6G, right? So the journey is going to be a continuum, but the foundational building block that we are putting together right now is going to enable us to materialize those experiences that we are all hoping to drive, better adoption of these technologies and solving customer problem, whether it's, related to video, artificial intelligence, and edge computing is also going to play a key role to enable these experiences to be delivered to the end users.
Justin? Thank you, Mohammad. Justin?
Yeah, no, I would wholeheartedly agree with all of that, especially the point about the trajectory of AI going towards proactive actions, whether it be related to the customer experience, other things, or protection, fraud, all that stuff. I think as we start to get more comfortable with the technology, we're going to start to become more comfortable making decisions based on it. And hopefully that seems, at least to me, the direction that we're going to be headed.
And if I kind of think and summarize what's the future of the telcos, I look at it as on the 3 O's, right? It would impact our network by being much more open. It will get us to be much more optimized, right? And it will be much more organic. And what I mean by organic is that ability to prescribe and tailor to each one of us, right, for each business customer needs, the slice of the network or the ability of the network that operates the best for them, for their best application, for their best user at that time, being an AR, VR, or being a computer vision, or being a consumer that needs it right away to consume entertainment. So with that, gentlemen, I think that kind of concludes our session for today. I appreciate your time and your insight. And with that, good afternoon, everyone.
Wow, thank you so much. This has been amazing. All of you have shared such powerful insights with us, and I know this virtual audience is giving you a huge virtual round of applause.
Yay, good job, guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all. And a special thank you to Lilac for moderating. For the audience, it's time for you to make your way to your next session. Along the way, make sure you accept your connection request and take some time to check out our amazing exhibits. Thanks so much, and we'll see you around.